Before we finish up, and I'm going to talk another half hour or so yet today, before we do, I want to give you an assignment. Notice this one has points associated with it. It's practice. It's ERD practice. If you give me a halfway decent attempt at it, you'll get your 5 points. Doesn't have to be perfect. This stuff that we're doing takes practice. Now this is an ERD where we already have shown, I have already figured out and shown to you what the direct relationships are. But there's more to an ERD, and hopefully I think we'll learn that today. If we don't, I might be getting you started on this but not collecting it next time. But down here I give you a verbal description of what we want to do. And so your job is to draw the entity relationship diagram based on this description. And do what we're going to continue to do now. Ultimately, what I would like in this diagram, that the relationships are already defined for you. What I want you to figure out here is, what are the cardinalities? Is it one-to-one, many-to-many, one-to-many? I don't need you to resolve them. Just want you to figure it out. I'm going to show you how to do that. And if I don't get to it today, then that'll be the second part of this assignment next week. I don't want you to get started on this. I want you thinking about ERDs over the weekend so that it doesn't go completely stale on you. So there's all 5 parts here. What I would like you to do is open up Visio, duplicate this, figure out the cardinalities, draw these diagrams, and if we have the skills, figure out the cardinalities. If you don't have, if I haven't taught you the skills yet, I don't expect you to do it. I doubt I will be collecting this on Tuesday. I doubt it. I don't see us getting that far in 25 minutes. Can I what?
Zoom in a little bit.
Zoom in?
Yeah. This is on your website, right?
Yeah, this is, I'm sorry, I didn't. It's right here, ERD practice, I'm sorry.
It's like OneDrive or website.
So
One of the two.
problem is separate diagram?
Pardon me? Each problem is a separate ERD.
Let's do Tuesday.
I want you working on it for Tuesday, but I'm probably not gonna, I don't see us getting done with it by Tuesday. We got more to do. So it's under assignments, RDD, on the website, ERD practice. I'm not giving it a due date. My gut feel right now is due date will be a week from today, but I don't want you waiting until Wednesday to do it. Do yourself a favor, try it. We can talk about it in class and see where it goes. All right, so our next step, going back to our notes here, first of all, there's one step here that I forgot to talk about. If we find a field that is multi-value, how do you know if it's a multi-value field? Its name in that initial primary or preliminary field list is probably plural, like hobbies, programs. You know, poor Matt's in 2 different programs. That's not a field. If the name of the field is plural, it's probably a table. The exception to that, in most of my databases, is notes or comments or something like that. And Joni suggested that maybe we should put the notes and comments in its own table someplace. That's a possibility, but I don't. So that's the exception. So I have this field that is fairly large that allows me to type as much text as I want. I can even add more to it later, remove stuff before that. I can manipulate it as I go. It's all in one box. And it's built into tables. So that's the one exception I have, is comments and notes that'll be plural, and it's a field name that's plural. Most everything else is going to be singular. So I didn't see any in his initial field list, and if there were any, I think we've already made them into tables, because notice here everything's plural. Here we're talking about fields. If in the preliminary field list you see something that's plural, it's probably a table, not a field. I don't think we had, if we had any of those, we've already fixed that problem by changing the field into a table. So now we're in step 3. We've got a list of tables. Notice it's just a list. They're not even connected yet. It's just a list. And we're fairly happy with this. How many of you, by the way, had these 9, 8 tables? Notice all 8 of them?
I had 7, but they were.
No, that's a no. Because you said the magic word but, so that's not okay. Probably not. If he had all 8 of them with different names, I'm gonna move him up here because I didn't.
Bring him up and then pull him down.
No, I'm not gonna bring him down. No, I'm bringing him back up again. What I mean by bring him up here is he can teach, and he got all 8 because he's doing better than me. I had 7. The names might be different. But the point of that conversation is the 20 of us, roughly, are going to do a better job than one of us. 2 of you are going to do a better job than one of you. Feel free to do that homework assignment as a pair. And if you're starting to have your favorite buddy that you're doing all your work with, stop that. Because the 2 of you are not going to get hired together and sit next to each other when you leave here. You need to get some experience with others. Doesn't mean you can't go back and visit your friends. Doesn't mean you can't still talk with that friend and say, what did you get? But don't work with them all the time. It's not in your best interest. I have no way of checking that. I'm not smart enough to remember who worked with who. But yeah, let's build a database for that. Let's move on to this. Okay, so here's the 9. I think we did a pretty good job. And now we're going to continue to work as this big monster team to find the relationships here. Busy, do me a favor. There we go. When you do these on your own over the weekend, your answer, I would expect over the 20 of you, there's going to be a lot of different answers. Even in those little bitty problems that I give you. Those are little bitty ones. If they get complicated, you're making them too complicated. Okay, I'm trying to find simple databases that you can practice on. So those that I just gave you on the practice assignment on the website should be fairly simple. What we're looking for now, and this gets a little more challenging, this is where the whiteboard is great. What we're looking for now is the direct relationships here. Direct relationships. Some of you are going to propose relationships, and I'm going to show you what I mean by no, that's not a direct relationship. There's an indirect relationship. The way you're supposed to do this is for every table, ask yourself, is there a direct relationship between it and every other table in the database? The way Hernandez does this is he basically uses an Excel spreadsheet and he puts all the tables across the top and then the same tables down the side. And then for every pair, except the ones where they're identical, for every pair he says yes or no, they're directly related. To make sure you don't forget one. Every single one. I'm going to try it in Visio because we've only got 9. Imagine how fun this is if we come up with 10, 20, 30. So let's start with table technicians. And you know what? I think I'm just going to start making a list over here. And if they're directly related, then I'll move them a little closer. Okay, let's start with this. Technicians and parts. Directly related. Agreed. No. Somebody said, well, technicians install parts. But there's no direct relationship between you and a piece of RAM. Okay? There's no direct relationship. Why are you installing that part? Because there's a work order. If there weren't a work order, you and that part would not be talking to each other. Unless you're one of those that likes to touch parts, but let's not go there. Okay, so I believe there is a direct relationship between technicians and work orders. Maybe. I'm having second thoughts. Why am I having second thoughts? Because a couple of you have said already, can't more technicians than one work on a work order? What that leads me to believe is this. work orders have multiple services that we want to do to them, like blow out the dust, like run antivirus, like run crap cleaner, like install RAM. A technician does a service that is directly related to a work order. That's kind of what I'm seeing here right now, and I may still change this. That's why I like whiteboards. But for right now, I'm going to use my trusty dusty tool. Why do you have an arrow on you? Oh,
Oh, because you had it snapped it earlier. When you saved it.
this has been my nemesis for it's my big problem with Visio. It just likes these connectors, and I cannot find a diagram that lets me do it very easily. And then I got to remember where it's hiding. No arrows. Stupid thing. Okay. I think these are direct relationships. Somebody talk me out of it if you want to.
Don't you need, in order for a work order, you need device and customer?
Yes, I'm not done yet. I'm just saying that I think this is why technicians do work, because there are services that we are going to do for a work order. What this also becomes, in a way, is a linking table. Because don't technicians work on work orders? Yes. One work order can be worked on by how many technicians? Many. One technician works on many work orders. Many, that's a many-to-many relationship. The resolution is a linking table. You geniuses came up with the linking table ahead of time. We geniuses as a group. I helped. I get to be part of that. Right. So I think this is okay. I've noticed I'm not talking normally about cardinality. I'm just kind of looking ahead here. Okay, we were talking about technicians. Are technicians directly related to devices? I don't think so either. Are technicians related to issues? Technicians have issues, but that's not what we're tracking here. Right? Are they directly, now these are subtables, so when I talk about devices, that covers these, maybe. Are technicians related to computers, to printers? No. Parts, we already said no. Manufacturers? No. So now our technicians table is done. We have linked it to every table that it's directly related to. Okay. And I don't have to do the reverse now, right? Because if technicians are not related to devices, then devices are not related to technicians. It's either they either are related with a line, directly related, or they're not. Okay, so what do we do next? Let's go to the big work order one here. Or maybe let's jump into services and see what happens. Are services directly related to devices? Hmm.
No.
You hear me going, you know what that means? In my head it's going, yeah, wait, no, yeah, maybe I'll eat.
Because we said.
You know what, that one's too hard. Let's put that aside for now. Okay, Steve says no. And again, if we're not directly related to devices, we're probably not direct. We do services to computers? I don't know. Let's do something simple. Oh, that's why I grabbed the wrong one. Okay. This one, I'll bet, that one have a line? No, that's the right one. I forgot to take the arrow off of that one. Okay, so I'm going to steal this. I'm going to do something that's simple because I know that this is right. So I'm kind of working inside out here, but I have to be careful when I do this. I know that a device is directly related to a computer because it's a subcategory of it. If that's the case, then it works for printers too, right? Arg.
Much easier on whiteboard.
Yeah, absolutely easier on a whiteboard. But You all keep not showing up for class. I have to record this stuff. That's all right. What about manufacturers?
Even devices.
Devices. Does every device have a manufacturer is the question.
Yeah.
Yes. If the answer was no, some do, some don't, then we got to figure out which ones do and which ones don't and link it to the right one that does. But in this case, I agree with you that yes, they all have devices. That was lovely. Or all devices have a manufacturer. I agree with you. And remember, this is simply a list of manufacturers that we know so we can reuse it and not have to type Hewlett Packard with its dashes in there every single time one of those comes in. We just pick it from a list. Here it is. That should help. Okay. Do our work orders relate to manufacturers? Probably not. So you know what? I'm moving this one over here because it's kind of out in the fringes. Issues. Where does it go?
Work order.
Work orders. It's my gut feel too. That for a work order, we're gonna have a bunch of issues, potentially, or just one. That's my gut feel. Ugh. Parts. Service?
Work orders or the issue.
Could multiple services use the same part?
Or like device.
Not really. So that might not be a bad place to put it. Now, when I talk parts here, am I talking about something generic like RAM? Or am I talking about one piece of RAM? We'll have to figure that out.
Could you also link parts to manufacturers or devices if you were keeping track of it?
Oh, yeah, that's a possibility, isn't it? My gut feel, first of all, is that this is correct.
Could it also be like software, like virus scanning, malware?
That's not a part, no. Okay. Though, ooh, parts are hardware and software? Could be. We installed some software for you. I don't know that I want to keep track of the software unless, no, we'll see. Let's not get too crazy here. Now, Kath, what I mean by not too crazy is if we try to make this too real world, we're going to spend way too much time on this and you're not learning anything except one sample. That's why I'm making you do those little ones. Kathy mentioned, do we want to keep track of the manufacturer of our part? Why are you so complicated?
Well,
Because that little arrow guy is there. Jeez. There. What? Could we connect parts to manufacturers? Is there a relationship there? Parts have manufacturers?
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Do we want to mix the manufacturers for parts and devices? Could. Right? Shouldn't make any difference. So let's say yes on that. I'm sorry, I'm just too good at dragging the middle of stuff, and that has a different effect here. Stop laughing, I'll make you come up and do it. Now, we have everything connected. Does that mean that we're done? No, not necessarily. Yeah, we really haven't gone through each one and said yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Technicians provide a service. I think that's right. Technicians, we already said, are not directly related to anything else. Services might include parts. If they do, there'll be a manufacturer for that part. What about services and devices? My question in my head is, are services related to devices or do work orders related to devices?
Services, because maybe you specialize in certain devices. But wouldn't it have to have a work order first? There should be one work order per device that has.
There'll always be a work order for a service. I won't do a service without a work order.
Okay.
So then you wouldn't have parts with the service either, because you would need the
Work order for
parts.
I'm listening. You can keep talking.
I mean, no, that's part of the
That's my first instinct. You bring in a device, I give you a work order for it. You bring in 2 devices because you want your printer fixed too, you get 2 work orders. And then in that work order, we do all kinds of services. And so if I want to know what was done to that device, I can follow its work order to its services and say, here's what we did to it.
Wouldn't the parts be connected to work orders instead of services?
Because you can't have a service.
Without a work order?
I don't use parts without service.
You don't just have a work order.
That's kind of what she's saying, and I would agree there. Remember, these are subcategories. The service is done to a device, but indirectly because of the work order. The work order is kind of our central here, right? Grand Central Station, that's what we're all about. That often happens when you build these databases. You will find one table that seems to be connected to just about everybody. Services are technicians indirectly, parts indirectly. Notice there's a circle here. That can get really tricky sometimes. Then we have issues. I'm still not convinced about this one here.
Wouldn't the issue go before the?
I'm thinking services. No.
Wouldn't issue
There is the relationship here.
a work order?
Oh, wait a minute.
You wouldn't have work order without an issue.
I wouldn't have a work order without an issue. True.
If you didn't have an issue, you wouldn't have.
And I'm not going to have an issue in my database without a work order either. That's why there's a relationship there. Now, what's crossing my mind here, right, is these services. Do I have services that are not related to an issue?
Yes.
If we follow my example that I gave about blowing the dust out and running a virus scan, regardless of whether you ask for one or not, the answer to that is yes. But that doesn't mean that this issue isn't tied to that service. There could be a service with an issue related, or there's a service without an issue. So I think there's a relationship here.
What about work order, device, and stuff branching off the device, then the issue, the service?
What are you saying about work orders and devices? You want to split them off?
You have a work order for a device, so you can start with device or work order, probably device, work order, then issue, service. I'm just going.
Well,
through
the problem I have with issues, if I hook it up to the device, do we ever get the same computer back to the clinic twice because it's got a virus again? So I don't want to hook it to the device. This work order has an issue, I think. It's not the device. What device are we talking about? This is an issue from this work order to that device. I can still, they're still tied. It's just I don't see it's direct. I don't think it's direct. Okay, this is a good start. I'm not sure it's 100% right yet, but what I want to do is use the last 3 minutes to talk to you about how do we determine the cardinality. And this is not the last time I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it 3 minutes so that maybe when you're doing your practice ones over the weekend, you can practice it. Okay. Here's how it's done. And this is part of step 3 yet. And this part here is figuring out this cardinality. And it says in here, here's how you do the cardinality. For each direct relationship, direct, you read it in 2 directions. And you always start with the word one. One. So you read it this way. One lab has, notice the word has would be here, right? In many ERDs, you'll see a diamond here with a verb in it. It only helps me for this one step, and after that, I don't need it. So to me, the verb is in here. One lab has many computers. And notice these are singular. That's okay, as long as I'm consistent. So that's where the M goes. I make a sentence. One lab has many computers. And then you must reverse the process. And you, again, start with the word one. One computer is in one lab. So this is a one-to-many relationship. What if it was M here and one there? It's a one-to-many relationship. Doesn't matter which side the M and the one are on. It's a one-to-many relationship. So let's take a look at this. And in Visio, this is how I do it. And this is another one of those tools I'm thinking about adding to my favorites, is I use the little text tool here, and I click, and I just type an M in there. I like the capital M's. And then I shrink that down so it just fits. And then I control drag it, and I create a 1 in there. Maybe, there we go. And now I have my 1's and M's. And I just park them on the lines. So let's start with this one. One technician works on how many services? Many. Agreed. So I put the M down here. Which side of the line doesn't matter. I kind of keep it out of the way of everybody else. After a while, they start overlapping if I'm not careful. But now I have to read it the other way. One service is provided by many technicians. Depends. What's our definition of a service? If the service, notice the service is connected to a work order. So we're not talking here, maybe we are. It depends on our definition of a service. Is a service blow out the dust? Or is a service blow out the dust related to this work order? Could be both. Could be either. So I think we're maybe missing something here. Okay. There's services, because here's a list of the services that we provide. Right? We do antivirus, we run crap cleaner, we run malware. We install whatever. And we can make a whole list of services to pick from. What are you doing? That one, that one, that one. Those might be services. And so there might be another table in between here. So I'm going to go, because Sam said absolutely positively yes, that one service can be performed by many different technicians, especially if it's blow out the dust. That could be done by anybody, right? On this computer, it's blow out the dust. On that computer, it's blow out the dust. On that computer, it's blow out the dust. So I'm going to go with that. One service. I'm going to go this way now. One service incorporates how many parts? Could be many. My gut feel on that one is one part. If I'm putting 3 parts in, it's 3 different services. That's my gut feel on that one. One part can be used for how many different services? Depends on the definition of part. Is it RAM or is it a stick of RAM? I mean, do we want a complete parts list? I'm guessing no. If that's the case, then here's an interesting relationship. That's what I get for letting Lyle give me an idea. Right?
I thought this was a simple idea.
Oh yeah, he thought it was simple. Okay. 1-to-1. Do one more, and then you get the idea. Right? And you can listen to the back end of this recording. It's 1-6 for RDD. All right. You can listen to this a couple times, but remember the key part is you do every direct relationship. You figure out, you start with one of them, doesn't matter because you're going to go both directions anyways, doesn't matter where you start. And you always start with the word one. One part is made by one manufacturer. One manufacturer makes many parts. Always start with the word one. One part is made by, notice where the one goes. It gets attached to the table you're going towards. You want to look at it that way because I'm making a sentence. The verb, whatever it is in the middle here. One part is made by one manufacturer. One manufacturer makes many parts. Clue. I don't believe there are any one-to-one relationships in the practice exercises. If you're coming up with a one-to-one, you might want to question yourself. Or you could be the first one to recognize it. That happens. Been doing it wrong for 10 years, and then Isaac comes in and said, "What? It's a one-to-one." And he talks me into it. And I take credit for it from then on. No, but that can happen. So we need a break before programming logic starts, so let's take it. I will save this, put it up on OneDrive. I'm not sure it's 100% correct yet. And with many-to-manys, it's definitely not done. But we'll take another look at it. If I have thoughts about it over the next 4 days, I will modify it and tell you why I thought that. Call it a day.